There's a very kind lady actually boiled a kettle for me.
Good on, Diane. Okay, members. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to the first digital meeting of the new year of Governance and Audit Committee. It's being held via Microsoft Teams today, the 25th of January 2022 at 2 p.m. prompt. Just to confirm that this meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images, audio of those individuals present and or speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. If members lose connection during the meeting, please try to make every attempt to connect. However, the meeting will continue as long as it remains quorate. Committee services staff are available and we'll be able to help you to reconnect if necessary. I wish to remind everyone that the Chair has the discretion to terminate or suspend recordings if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings or that continued recording might infringe the rights of any individual. The Chair also has the right to remove persons from the remote meeting if that is necessary. Can I also remind members to please mute their microphones, but to leave their cameras on? Can I please ask that officers have their microphones and cameras turned off until they're invited to present their reports or speak on an item? The Chair, members and officers should only activate their microphones after the Chair has invited them to speak on any item. Today, we'll be using Microsoft Forms within the Show Conversation for voting on agenda items, where the voting poll will appear and then members are asked to click on Yes, No, Abstain, and then click on Submit Vote. Okay, we'll go on to the agenda proper now. Rebecca, could I ask you please if you could do a roll call of members and officers?
Yes, of course, Chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Aldworth.
Present.
I had apologies from Councillor Bevan and Councillor Stone and Councillor Hardacre. Councillor Mann.
Present, Chair, but apologies for having to leave early, as I explained earlier.
Councillor Miles.
Present.
Councillor Parry, I can't see her in attendance. Councillor Sargent.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Ridgewell.
Yes, I'm here. And just for the record, because I've got a poor signal, I'm going to have to keep my camera off. I'm sorry about that.
I can't see Councillor Graham Simmons. We've had apologies from Councillor Julian Simmons. And we have Lay Member Nigel Yates.
Present, sorry, it was in mute.
Okay, thank you. Chair, we have Cabinet Member Elena Stenner.
Present. Apologies, I have to leave at 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. If I move on to the officers, we have 2 officers from Audit Wales, Bethan Roberts.
Present.
Thank you. And Mark Jones.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Okay, if I move on to the council officers, Alan Dallimore.
Present, Chair.
Richard Edmonds.
I'm here, thanks, Chair.
Deb Grono.
Present, Chair.
Steve Harris.
Yeah, present.
Rhian Kites.
Present.
Joanna Pierce.
Yeah, present.
Sue Richards.
Yes, present.
And Andrew Sovcombe.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any officers whose names I haven't called out? Okay, thank you, Chair. I think we've got one officer observing as well as Hayley Williams. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Colin, you have your hand up.
Just had a message from Councillor Parry, who says she's got a family emergency, so she won't be able to join the meeting.
Dear.
I don't know what it is, but literally that's what it says. So
Okay,
just to
thank
let you know,
you.
Chair.
Thank you very much. If anyone knows of anyone else who is not here, could they add it to the chat, please? Thank you. Second agenda item is the declarations of interest, which I will read. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and/or prejudicial interests in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Please use hands up function to indicate please. No.
Nothing reported, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much, Nigel. Okay, move on to agenda item 3, to approve and sign the minutes for accuracy. If I go page by page, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. Are there any comments? No, could I have someone to move the report, please?
Move the report, Chair. Councillor Ridgewell.
Oh, thank you, John. Someone to second?
I second, Nigel Yates.
Thank you ever so much. If we could move to the vote, Rebecca. Thank you.
Can I vote Nigel Yates approve, please?
Thank you, Nigel. %?
Yes, Chair, that's carried unanimously.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Move on to agenda item 4, which the Governance and Audit Committee Forward Work Programme. Can I ask Steve to present this, please? Steve Harris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just briefly, the Forward Work Programme has been updated for agenda items to be considered at the additional meeting of the committee scheduled for the 16th of March, and also for the meeting that will take place on the 19th of April. Members are just asked to note the Forward Work Programme subject to any changes that are requested. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Everyone happy with that? Yes?
There's a hands up, Chair.
Mark Jones.
Yes, thanks, Chair. In terms of the March committee meeting, I think you can add there the 2022 audit plan, or the Audit Wales 2022 audit plan. So I'd add that one to that meeting, please.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Now, is this a vote or a note?
Yes, Chair, it's for voting, so if you could ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you.
Okay. Mover, please.
Mike Adams.
Thank you, Mike.
Nigel Yates, second, please.
Thank you, Nigel. Well, we're going very well today. Agenda item 5.
We haven't had
Audit Wales
vote,
work programme and oh
moved
gosh,
in
I'm going
second,
too
haven't had the
fast.
vote. There we go.
Apologies, Rebecca.
Can Nigel Yates submit his verbal vote, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 5. The Audit Wales work programme and timetable for Caerphilly County Borough Council. Now, I'm going to welcome Bethan Roberts to her first audit committee. Promise to be kind to you today, darling.
Thank you, Chair.
Could you take us through the report, please?
I'll just make a start, Chair, and then I'll pass to Bethan because it starts with our financial audit work. But the document as a whole is the usual update that members are familiar with, I'm sure. I'll just say a couple of things on the financial audit work, which is the first table you come to, and then pass to Beth. In terms of the three areas under that heading, financial audit work, there's the 2021 grants and returns. We say in this paper that we had certified 5 of the 6 and expected to do the final one by the end of the month, which we have done. I certified the housing benefit grant claim last Thursday. There have been no significant qualifications of any of those 6 grants, and therefore there's been no reduction in monies, for example. So it's been a very positive set of audits. It's reflected very well on the council and the officers, and it was the first year for us to come in and look at them for some time since Grant Thornton was doing the audits. So that's a positive outcome that just wanted to relay back to you. The audit of the Blackwood Arts Centre 2021, the annual charitable accounts, those have been audited. They are due to be considered by Cabinet, I think is Thursday this week, and the Auditor General is due to certify them on Friday. So they will be certified by that date. There's one qualification on the Blackwood Arts Centre with regard to that certification, and officers and the council will be addressing that issue in terms of 21-22. And then the final point is the 21-22 set of accounts. Things come around quickly, and therefore we're due to start our audit planning for your main set of accounts, 21-22, and we'll start our audit planning in February on that piece of work. I'll pass to Bethan, who will touch on some of the performance audit work that then continues on the next page.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so the next couple of pages set out the work programme for 2021 and 2022. You'll have seen the work programme anyway, but I'll just draw your attention to a couple of the work that's ongoing. So the annual report summarising the financial performance and audit work which was undertaken last year, that's been completed and is on the following item on the agenda as well. We're currently working on the Springing Forward project, which is a thematic piece of work, looking at how effective councils are strengthening their ability to transform, adapt and maintain the delivery of services. And we're currently in the field work stage with that, looking at both asset and the workforce. Local risk-based work, we're in the process of finalising the project brief for the project there. And another one to draw your attention to as well is the improvement reporting audit, which is the certificate that comes on later and at agenda 14, I believe. So that's the summary of the work programme. The rest of the this report covers the national studies plan, and you'll see that they set out some work that's currently ongoing, and those are up for publication soon. There's also contributions there from Eston and CIW, Ken Inspectorate Wales, on there as well. And And as you scroll further down the report, you'll see there's information provided on our national reports and other outputs published from the 1st of April 2021. And there's also links there for you to have a look at those reports in further detail on our website. And last but not least, the latest good practice and exchange events and publication is set out on that report as well. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of the full programme of work that Audit Wales, Estyn and CIW are working towards. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Beth.
You.
Nigel, who's first with the... Nigel? Nigel?
Oh, I'm talking to myself, sorry. Councillor Miles had a question on this part of the audit, I think.
Thank you.
I did, yeah. It was about that local risk-based work that you just touched on, Beth, and said that you were finalising the project brief. I spotted in the last minutes, just as we were going through them now, that this came up last time as well, and it was homelessness? Is that the project?
Yes, it is, yes, and that's in the process just of being finalising now, so hopefully by the next audit committee we can report further progress on that for you. So it is on homelessness, yes.
Yeah, and is it still on track to be completed by May 2022, which is mentioned in the report?
I think we'll have to take another look at the time frame with that and work with the officers just to make sure that we properly schedule at the time of the work in. And considering all the other impacts of the work programme as well. So, yeah, that's we're in talks with that.
Yeah, that's okay then. Thanks very much.
Nigel, who's next, please?
Did you have a question on this one? No. Okay. No, I've got no one else for a question on this at the moment.
Colin has raised a hand. Colin Mann?
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, Nigel didn't have me on because I wasn't here at the time. But talking about Bethan, it's page 2 of your report, or page 12. On the recovery planning, it says complete, and then it says that ongoing engagement through assurance and risk assessment. So could you tell us exactly what is actually happening there, please? Because it's either complete or it's not really.
Okay, thank you. So the assurance and risk piece of work, that's an ongoing piece of work during the year. So we look at council meetings, we meet up with officers, we do a selection of document reviews to gather assurance, and as part of that we will be considering recovery planning as well. But in terms of the letters, those have been issued at I think it was the October 21 committee, specifically on recovery planning. But the assurance and risk process is ongoing. We will still be keeping an eye out, so to speak. So that's why it's not completed as such, because it's an ongoing assurance sort of practice that we do. Does that help at all?
Yes, thanks. Is this specifically to do with the pandemic, or is it just general?
It's specifically to do with the pandemic, the audit recovery planning, but we're also looking at other topics as part of the assurance and risk project as well.
Okay,
Richard, you'd like to come in?
Yeah, if I could, Chair, just to assist a little, I think it's probably unhelpful in the way that it's described in the document. You're right, Councillor Mann, the recovery work is complete, but we work and continue to work with Audit Wales and other regulators in terms of any specific risks that emerge through the course of the year. Just to reinforce what I'm sure you already know, we will be meeting with all of our regulators at a workshop. I think we've got it planned, Bethan, for March time, where Audit Wales and the other regulators will tell us what they've established over the last 12 months or so in terms of where we are as an organisation. They'll highlight any areas of concern, opportunities for improvement that exist, and then that will kind of inform the work programme moving forward. So I think those are probably two separate things that are amalgamated in the document as a single item. Hopefully that helps, Councillor Mann.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Just to come back on that, we can make that clearer in future documentation for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bethan. Any more questions for Bethan or Mark, please? No?
None registered, Chair.
Okay, now this item is to note. So we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the Caerphilly County Borough Annual Audit Summary. Now, I believe this is Audit
Thanks.
Wales again, with Mark and Bethan.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'll just cover this briefly and take any questions. Relatively short document, 8 or 9 pages long. It's aimed mainly at the public. It goes on our website on a bilingual basis soon, probably this week or certainly next week. So, and you place it on your website as well, I believe. It starts by giving some basic facts about the council, councillors, the reserves, some deprivation statistics and the nature of the population, the makeup of the population, so some introductory facts of that nature. It then briefly summarises the Auditor General's duties, the work that he is required to do. And then it tells the public and of course councillors and officers what we have found for the year past, for the year just past. Each of those reports that are set out in what we found, you would have considered as an audit committee or elsewhere in the council through various channels. So it's a summary document. It does provide links to the underlying individual reports. So for the reader, they can quite if a reader, member of the public wants to pick a report, they've got an easy link to click on and go straight to it. And that's really the nature of the report. It's a summary document. It's an important one, and we place it on our website for all councils, for all national parks, fire and rescue, and police. And it's a summary document. Happy to take any questions on any of the content. Bethan and I are happy to take any questions.
Okay, Nigel, are there any questions on this, please?
Sorry, no one's requested. Oh, hands up now. Councillor Miles.
Isn't it? Thank you. It's not a question so much.
Sorry, hang on a sec.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't a question so much as it was an observation, and it was to do with the financial sustainability section. And I think it's no, I found it quite a useful summary then of our position, and it reminded me there that reserves is something that we talk about a lot in the council, and I think I'm going to have to read the full report again to see what you had to say about that in more detail. So as I said, no question, but just a very useful document, I think.
Thank you. Mike Adams.
Councillor Adams, I believe, put his hand up next.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mark and Bethan. This is a question, really, that I think I've hinted at, might even have asked at previous meetings, and it's in the key facts. And in the third one, we're talking about the increase in the population of Caerphilly over 20-year period. And I'm looking really at the last one. We got decreases in children and the number of working age population, and the huge increase in the number of people aged 65 and over. Where are we looking at where people's pension ages are increasing and where people are staying on in work anyway, well beyond 65? Because I'm sure you take this 65 as what has been the national pension age for people, but that's beginning to increase, isn't it? And by 2040, I can't remember what the national pension age minimum will be. Will it won't have reached 68 by then? I'm not quite sure. But many people are continuing because they have to for income purposes. Are we looking at changing perhaps those relationships and the ratios that may then apply?
Yeah, it's a very good point and some good questions. I'll take that. I'll take that one away and speak to colleagues. But it's a good point you make. The information source, if you look at the footnote, is the Welsh Government's. It's called Stats Wales.
Oh yes,
So it's the Welsh Government data that we're drawing on for that particular point, footnote 5. Whilst I don't know the answer myself, colleagues will know, unless Bethan knows, but colleagues will note the extent of the Welsh Government's information, Stats Wales information, which may have some of the information in the areas you're asking about, and for next year's annual audit summary or any relevant reports in between, we could kind of get a bit more specific on some of these kind of increase in pension ages and so forth, particularly back through to 2040, as you say. So I'll take that away. I'm more than happy to drop an update back to the clerk and the chair, so you can log it as an action on the action log by all means, and we can bring that back to the March meeting if you'd welcome that. Yeah,
that's okay. I'm just looking at my own case in point. I didn't actually finish my normal working life until 66, but I had decreased my hours in the couple of years before up to that.
Yeah, it's a mixed picture, because I mean I was watching the news about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and there's also a section of people maybe 55 to 60 who post COVID are not returning to work. You know, they've said, well, so it cuts. Yeah. It's kind of cutting both ways, really. It's people who are retiring earlier. There's ones that are going to go longer. It's a very mixed. It's a very mixed bag.
It's whether the 65 now. It should be the cutoff that we look at as the determinant.
Yeah, and it's a good point. But as I say, I'll ask the relevant people in Audit Wales, because who pull this information together with the Welsh Government, and I can come back as an action on that point.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mark.
Steve Harris
has
a question.
Please.
Steve Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to the point raised by Councillor Miles on reserves. Within the financial sustainability report, you won't see a lot more detail. It's just headlines. But as you've heard me say on numerous occasions, we do the annual report on reserves to Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee. Next one is due later in February. So if you look out for that, that will give you a full breakdown of the reserve, along with the reasons why they're all held at the present time.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, we have Councillor John Ridgewell.
Yes, John.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. One of the figures that jumped out on me was the 8.1 decrease in children. 8.1% decrease in children. I just wonder where we stand compared to other local authorities, and what the average Welsh figure is, if that's available at all.
I don't have those kind of figures to hand. Again, I can take it away and get the Welsh average. These annual audit summaries are being published for all local government bodies. Well, this point is relevant to councils, of course. So you would see the information through 22 sets of annual audit summaries, but that's quite a big task. But I can ask about the percentage on number of children across Wales. I'm not sure how publicly available the Welsh Government Stat Wales figures are. They might be publicly available. I'm not sure on that, but they may be on the Welsh Government's website rather. So that might be one source to try. But I can certainly take a query away on that particular percentage.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. I actually probably thinking that maybe our officers were better placed to answer that specific question. But it would be an interesting statistic to establish from my perspective. Thanks.
Colin Mann.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, Chair. On page, 26, it mentions we have 11 of the most deprived wards in Wales, 9th highest, etc. I'm trying to remember, maybe someone tell me whether that's actually improved or got worse in the last couple of years or so.
Yeah, for Caerphilly, I'm not too sure on that. Bethan might know, but maybe not. I haven't looked at last year's annual audit summary recently, for example, so I haven't got that kind of, I don't know the movement on that. Again, this is a kind of third query on the Stats Wales figures, so I don't mind taking it away as one action and coming back.
I've got a feeling it hasn't changed much, but I just wondered if anybody else had a better idea than a feeling.
Bethan?
Yeah, I don't have anything further to add to that. I'm not sure the position if it's improved or worsened, but yeah, as Mark said, the data sources that are used are Stats Wales, and the abbreviation is WIMD.
Yeah.
Not sure quite what the full term is, but
Welsh
yeah,
Index of Multiple Deprivation.
Deprivation, that's the one. So we can definitely look into that and share the information with you. That's no problem at all.
Okay, diolch, Bethan.
Thank you ever so much.
Steve Harris has a question.
Yeah, just a quick one. We can access that data ourselves as well through our policy team. So when we get the minutes for the meeting, we can also pick that up with probably Vicky Doyle, and she'll be able to provide a lot of the information you're asking for.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you.
I have no other questions on this particular item.
Thank you, Nigel. Again, this report is to note. So we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the Audit Wales report on the regeneration of town centres. Now, I believe Bethan from Audit Wales will be speaking on this, followed by Rhian Kites and Alan Dallimore from our council. Am I right in that?
This is the council itself's report on the report that we have.
Got it the wrong way around.
Yes, to pass it on to Rhian.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And thank you, Bethan, for clearing that up. The report in front of you aims to ensure that the committee is aware of the Audit Wales report, Regenerating Town Centres in Wales, and its recommendations. The Auditor General carried out a review of how local authorities are managing and regenerating town centres between October 2020 and May 2021. And in this context, the team and I were interviewed several times by Audit Wales as part of the preparation of this report. The report finds that overall, Welsh Government and local authorities has responded very well to support town centres during COVID. It recognises that town centre regeneration is a national priority, and this is now reflected very much in Welsh Government's town centre first approach. The report contains 6 recommendations as outlined in paragraph 5.9 of the report. 5 of the 6 recommendations are predominantly aimed at Welsh Government. However, members are asked to note the points outlined in the reports at paragraph 5.10 in response to the recommendations. The recommendations contained in the report are that the Audit Committee note the contents of the Audit Wales report and consider and comment on the self-evaluation that has been undertaken on our approach to town centre regeneration, which is appended to the covering report. So Alan and I are happy to take any questions and clarification on any of the contents. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rhian. Nigel, do we have any questions on this, please?
I've got one. There's a very poignant statement in the summary you make, in that you'll be addressing many challenges to face requiring brave decisions and ambitious leadership. How are we faring on moving forward on that statement that's made in the summary?
Sorry, can you just point to what part of the report you're referring to for me? Sorry, Mr.
You say that there are challenges that require brave decisions and ambitious leadership. Now, are we moving forward on any of those particular items that you mentioned there in the summary?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, I mean, there's very much a change in emphasis since COVID in terms of the way that we look at town centre regeneration. And in particular, I think there's been a re-emphasis between Welsh Government and local government collectively to refocus ambitions and efforts on town centre regeneration, because we'd very much moved away from that in preceding decades. So very much working collectively now with Welsh Government in partnership, whereas previously I think there was more of a hierarchical approach to regeneration, and the relationship between Welsh Government and local government was a different, albeit not so advantageous relationship in terms of leading town centre regeneration. There are a number of different models that we can operate in terms of town centre regeneration. Within Caerphilly, we've never operated the business improvement district model. We've always kept our town centre management and regeneration management model in-house. And again, through COVID, we've recognised how important that role is, and that there's a need actually to bolster our internal resources to enable us to do more, because fundamentally town centre regeneration has to come from the stakeholders, i.e. the businesses themselves, collectively with government at all levels to ensure that it's successful. So I think we have made great strides. I think there's still a long way to go, and I think partnership working is key to that success. And we've recently reconsidered our approach to town centre management as well, and through 2022 we are piloting a new model of operating to see if that can be more successful.
Thank you for that. Chair, I've got Councillor Brenda Miles there.
Brenda?
Thanks. I was happy to see in the self-evaluation answers were yes. so that was really good news. But I also sort of, in reading the no's, I thought, oh yeah, you know, I kind of agree with those. Not that I've got complete knowledge, but it had the feel of being a kind of, what's the word, sort of, it was the right kind of sentiment being expressed, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, to come to the point, there was one point in there I was particularly interested in, which was to do with the provision of free public Wi-Fi. Because I've always thought that free public Wi-Fi is becoming more and more pointless, because so many people use their own mobile data these days because it's much more affordable and what have you. But I was interested to read in there that there's actually good quality data, or the data coming from it is useful to us. And I was wondering how useful you think it is going to be, you know, based on what I just said, that a lot of people perhaps wouldn't log on to any public Wi-Fi that we provide to them now. Is the quality of data still going to be there, do you think, in the future?
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Miles. Two interesting points there. I think the first point is, I think in doing the self-evaluation, I think it did show us where we need to do more work as officers in terms of regeneration, because, you know, it is a big job. You can't regenerate places overnight, and it does take a lot of time and effort and a lot of capacity and officer capacity to drive initiatives forward. So recognising where we need to improve, I think, is important. That's the first point. The second point on the free Wi-Fi rollout, this has been slightly hampered by COVID, and we've been putting the kit in our 5 main towns over the last year, and still haven't sort of flicked on the switch yet, really, in terms of it being operational in all our towns. But it will be operational early in this financial year, and it will give us some very valuable data in terms of dwell time, footfall, the way people are operating in and around the town. So I hear what you say in terms of the free Wi-Fi and people using the data, but a lot of people do default to the free Wi-Fi, even if they've got their own data. So it still will give us valuable information, and it'll also give us the opportunity to review our current footfall arrangements with the footfall cameras, because we'll get better data for our analysis for regeneration moving forward from the Wi-Fi than we will from our current footfall cameras, which are just a snapshot at a given point in the town. So yes, it will be more valuable, but I do understand why you would question, you know, I understand the question.
Thank you.
And if I can just come in there, as Rian alluded to, the fact is that we already have that hardware, and it is installed, it just hasn't been turned on yet, and therefore the decision was taken probably 1.5 years ago to go forward with the introduction of the Wi-Fi. We were very lucky to get funding from a number of different sources to be able to introduce it. And as Rian has said, it will give us all sorts of information that will be very useful to the business communities, in particular in those town centres going forward. And let's not forget that we're talking to the business communities as well about that they can enhance their business models using digital platforms. There are a number of apps out there that they could utilise, and we're working with a number of companies in developing those apps as well to go forward, so that we've got a very comprehensive sort of digital coverage of our town centres, not just for the people coming into the town centres, but for the business community as well.
You got Steve Harris, a question?
Yeah, just a comment I wanted to make, actually, going back to Rian's point earlier about resources, just to remind members that the 2022-23 draft budget proposals that were endorsed by Cabinet on the 19th of January do actually include budgetary growth for 2 new town centre support officer roles. So I just thought obviously it'd be worth mentioning that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
You've got your hand up, Margaret.
Yes, thank you, Nigel. Ren, can I ask a question, please, on plans? And I appreciate this is early in the changes. I appreciate that you're talking now more with business communities and encouraging them to work together. But what is the plan? What is the aim of these town centres? What exactly do you want to get out of them?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sargent. That's an interesting question, because it's not really about what I want to get out of them, is it? It's about what our businesses and our communities want to get out of them. And I think collectively, you know, all of our towns have got to be vibrant places where businesses want to locate, which are diversifying, because increasingly town centres are no longer retail areas. Increasingly they're service centres, they're leisure areas, they're retail areas, they're recreational areas. You know, they're very important areas for our services and our key services to locate. So increasingly, I think all of our town centres over the next decade will move very much away from being purely retail focused and more to multi-service areas, which will be vibrant both in the day and in the night, and will be, you know, areas where people want to go and relax, both for leisure and for, you know, relaxation, leisure, nighttime economy reasons. And very much we are very aware that the nighttime economy is an area, in particular in Caerphilly, that we need to do a lot of work on. And each of our 5 principal towns, as you know, we've got a hierarchy of towns in Caerphilly, which are identified through the local development plan. Each of them have got a slightly different focus and a slightly different vision, because they have got very different roles within the hierarchy. So, for example, just to give you an example there, Ystrad Mynach, for example, is a key service sector town for us, because it's where our college is, it's where our headquarter buildings is, it's where our police are, it's where our hospital is, and by default we've got a lot of small independent traders within the town itself, but actually servicing a very wide range of public sector stakeholders who are using that town. And I know at the moment a lot of us are working from home, but it's got a very different feel and role there in Ystrad, like for example, to take another random town, to Blackwood or to Caerphilly then. And then, of course, with Caerphilly, obviously, you got the whole benefit of the castle and everything that the tourism economy can bring to Caerphilly town and the spin-off for the nighttime economy. So we have got, you know, clear visions and roles for each of our towns, but they do all perform different functions, even though the aspirations for vibrancy and lots of different uses in all of the towns will be a common one.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I totally get where you're coming from. There's bound to be different things for different towns. And Ystrad has got some lovely shops, especially barbers. But can I ask, you mentioned that you were saying that you won't be, it will be what the shopkeepers actually want. But surely it's got to be driven from the council.
sorry, just to come back on that, if I may, not the shopkeepers, it's all the stakeholders who use the town, Councillor Sargent. So that's your residents, that's your community, that's your stakeholders who shop and work in town, that's your businesses as well. And of course, us as a council, we'd be a stakeholder as well in that. So it's a multitude of people, all with an interest in the town, including, you know, visitors, residents, businesses. It's all of those things. So a town is very much, you know, a series of different communities using a town in a very different way, and it's understanding what all of those people require of that town. For example, if you've got a comprehensive school or a college close to a town, that'll drive quite a different feeling in that town than a town that hasn't got that sort of use close by.
I get your drift, I really do, but you can't keep asking all the questions. What did this area of people want? What did that area of people want? There has to be someone saying, focus. I want focus, I want drive, I want direction.
Yeah.
I want it to be something like this. So that isn't going to be from the council, is it? It's going to be from the stakeholders.
I mean, I know Alan wants to come in. I'm treading on his toes here slightly.
No,
but...
no, you finish up, Rhian. I just wanted to make a couple of other points.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's got to be leadership and drive coming from, obviously, ourselves as officers. We are driving policy for the council, which we obviously developed with members. So we'll help drive the policy and the aspiration in consultation with the community. But that leadership and ambition and drive will come from us, but very much working with our communities in town. So we can't dictate then as officers how things will be.
I appreciate
we
that.
very much have to lead and work with members and then work with the wider stakeholders to get us where we need to be. That's what I'm saying. I apologise if I wasn't clear enough.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Chair, it's about engaging with our stakeholders to develop the vision, and then it's our role to put that vision on paper and to drive it forward through a number of actions. In summary, full stop.
Yeah, so that will then, you will have some papers or whatever, will go to the relevant committee to be further discussed.
Yeah,
That's
and
fine.
there are any number of stakeholder groups that we would discuss the evolution of a place plan with, for instance, in a town centre. The one that's the forerunner at the moment is the Caerphilly 2035 place plan, and there was any number of stakeholder engagement events that were held by us and the consultants developing that plan, in developing the actions and objectives of that plan and the vision as well. And from that have come a number of interventions that we are driving forward now. But one of the things I wanted to add to Rhian's comments from my perspective as well is that our town centres, and this was a quote that a fellow colleague of mine some years ago made, are the windows into our county borough for a lot of people looking in. And therefore, for me, it's about getting our town centres to a point where they're attractive and that we can promote our county borough and inward investment in our county borough through them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great aspiration. I hope you get there. Thank you very much, Alan. Oh, one further question. The two officers that Steve Harris mentioned, what will their roles be?
Al, do you want to take that or shall I?
I'll go first. We've had a town centre management function for many years now. The staff resources have been depleted over time. We'd like to build back up the model that we were using for town centre management in terms of having a presence in the town centre for those businesses to engage with. So it will be shoe leather on the ground. It will be those officers will have a role in liaising with the businesses almost on a weekly basis. They'll have a role to play with the new format of the town centre management groups and driving that forward and making sure that the messaging is going out there to the wider business community, that it would be beneficial for them to engage with us. It'll be for them to help towards development of place plans for certain towns and to help drive forward the actions within them as well. But Rhian, did you want to add value to that?
I think you covered it sufficiently, Al, but they're very valuable roles, and we miss not having the resource we used to have to do that work.
Yeah, I can understand that. Thank you both very much.
Councillor Ridgewell. Councillor Ridgewell.
Oh, hello, Councillor Ridgewell.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. My question actually was, in a way, Margaret stole my thunder because I wanted to ask a question along the lines that she asked already, but I will come back to that. But I just wanted to add a footnote to the points that Alan was making there with regard to town centre management. He and I go back way beyond council times, and and certainly it's something that I think I've been very aware of, the loss we've had without having that particular bit. So I welcome very much the recreation of that particular post, and I can see the huge benefits that they have, and particularly at this time when regeneration is so key. But one of the things I wanted to ask was, as we're an audit committee, is I don't think, looking through the papers, I see very much which kind of either measures or quantifies what we might see as success. And I use the big we, okay? And I wonder if that's defined either by Welsh Government currently, or by ourselves, or by our partners and stakeholders. Is anyone able to give me a bit of a flavour about what success might look like to everybody here?
Sorry, I put my hand up. I did put my hand up. It took a bit of time coming on then. Yeah. Apologies for that. Yeah, well, we do actually have action plans for our regeneration strategies for the areas that we are working in, and obviously they are measurable, and we can specify, when things have been completed, when things have been undertaken. We can identify progress against those actions. We also do annual monitoring of things like footfall data, vacancy rates, etc., to know how vibrant our towns are. So members will be aware, for example, you get circulated the footfall counters regularly in terms of how many people are using our towns. We do an annual occupancy. We call it a vacancy rate, but it's an occupancy rate really, because that's a more positive way of saying it. But we do monitor our regeneration plans and our action plans to have a look at progress against our targets in the action plans. And in terms of the individual schemes, they are also measured and audited as well. So Al, do you want to add a little bit?
Yeah, on a more granular level, we tend to find that we can secure funding from external sources to take forward key projects in town centres to drive forward economic growth, usually through Welsh Government and in the past through Europe as well. And there's, as you know, John, there's often a number of outputs that we've got to stipulate in our submissions, which are then monitored and evaluated at the end of the actual project implementation period. And we use that as a gauge as whether we've been successful or not. Now, those outputs aren't necessarily just what we've produced in terms of bricks and mortar. It's about increasing footfall and economic prosperity in the town as well.
Thanks, Al. Yeah, and thanks, Ian. In terms of satisfaction surveys, what sort of role do they play then in defining our level of success?
If I can come in on that, clearly we undertake regular satisfaction surveys, and we undertake a survey every 3 years on our shopper attitude surveys, as well as a regeneration team. So we really do want to understand how people are feeling about the town centres they're accessing, and more importantly, we also want to find out why they're not going to some towns when they should be. So why are they not going to their local town, and why are they going to Pontypridd or Cwmbran or Cardiff or Newport? So understanding why people are not using the towns, so we can ensure that we are encouraging those things that they like to see in town. It's as important as understanding the people who are happy with their town centres. So in measuring that shopper attitude and also the household survey that we use, that gives us a good measure then of our residents and stakeholders and how they're using the town, what they want to see. Now, I think it's also worth just stating that in Caerphilly, unlike some of our neighbouring authorities, we've always had a town centre first policy. So that's why you don't see a lot about the town retailing in Caerphilly, unlike a lot of our neighbouring authorities. We've always tried to anchor the main uses in our town centres. So the policy that Welsh Government is now pursuing in terms of town centres first is one that we've had in Caerphilly since its inception back in 1996. So I think collectively, what we try to do is understand why people are using the towns, what can make them use them even more, and then when people are not using the towns, why not, so we can try and bridge the gap where things are missing for them then. Anth, do you want to add to that?
The only thing I would say with the new model that we're looking to introduce now for the town centre management groups, where we're going to engage with the businesses a lot more, I think we'll get some immediate feedback from those businesses, more so than we've had to date, in terms of satisfaction levels, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Al, and thanks, Rhian. Yeah, good comprehensive answers. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Who's next, Nigel, please?
Colin was going to ask a question, but I think he's gone now. But there's no one else now. Oh, sorry, there's Aldworth.
Colin
Councillor
and
Aldworth.
Richard Edmonds are leaving at 3 o'clock, aren't they? And Lynette, of course.
Councillor Aldworth has got the hand up.
Right, Elizabeth.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I know it's been a policy to look after some of the anchor stores, but it isn't great for the amenities that a lot of shoppers are looking for these days. Thinking in particular of the privately owned Gallagher site, Crossways. If they could have attracted more users on their site, that would be very helpful, because sadly, a lot of young people are leaving Caerphilly to buy what they need. They can't get what they want in Caerphilly town centre. So the policy might have, it's been the mainstay of how we felt about Caerphilly, but sadly, it's not doing anybody any good. We've had the situation of the gambling shops being so prominent in the upper part of town, the bookies. Some of them have now closed, so we've got a few empty shops in places. But what people are wanting is, like they see in other areas, the bit of out-of-town retailers. With Crossways, it wouldn't be that far out of town. It's walkable, but it hasn't happened. And this is what we need. We need people, the footfall. We need Caerphilly people spending in Caerphilly.
Yes.
And the appeal, I'm afraid, is so limited that it really needs grabbing hold of. Visitors to Caerphilly Castle come on their coach, and they come out of the castle and they get back on the coach. We need it. We need
I tend to agree with you,
to
Liz.
buy. Yeah.
But I think this is a discussion that perhaps you could take to whatever committee this goes to, because I totally agree with you. Rhian, would you like to respond? Because I don't want to get into what should be at other committees at the moment.
Yeah, Chair, I agree. I think Councillor Aldworth makes a valid point, and I think I was going to say that's very much a discussion for the LDP focus group and for the LDP work that we're doing now in terms of the future of our town centres and town centre first versus out of town shopping. That's firmly an LDP discussion. Happy to take that up with Councillor Aldworth outside of this.
That'll be good. Liz, can you contact Rhian and speak about that, please? Thank you ever so much. Are there any other questions on this, please?
No, there's no other questions on this particular subject.
Okay, thank you ever so much, officers. We've had a very good discussion on this. This report again is to note. So we'll move on to agenda item 8. The revised Risk Assessment Management Strategy 2022. Now, I'm not really sure who's taking this. Are you taking this through?
Yes, Chair. Ros Roberts was planning to be here, but unfortunately something's cropped up, so she can't make it. So I'm going to take the report on her behalf, if that's okay.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much.
No problem. My hand down. Okay. Just for a bit of background for members. As an authority, obviously we managed in risk for a long time, but in 2013 we formalised it into a strategy. We updated the strategy in 2017 as part of our work towards meeting the wellbeing of future generations legislation, and asked that we looked at risk through a different lens. Further updates were aligned to the part of the annual governance statement in 2021. We identified that we needed to update the risk strategy in light of changes that are mentioned in the covering report, which is attached for members. In addition, our members will be aware, in February 2020, just before the pandemic, Cabinet agreed the new performance framework that you've heard of, the corporate performance assessment, the Directorate performance assessment. Rather than standing alone, the updated risk register were incorporated into those documents. The strategy brought to you today is more refresh than a rewrite. Okay, towards the end of the strategy, what it does for you is give you the 5 or 6 areas that have been updated and refreshed. Members will note we refer to a guidance in the strategy. Ross is just finalising the update of that guidance, and that will be published on our intranet to align with the publishing of the strategy, obviously if agreed by Cabinet. I hope that's enough of an overview for you, Chair, but I'm more than happy to try and take as many questions as I can. But if there's more detail needed, I'll pass them on to Ross and get a written response for you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Nigel, is there questions, please?
Yes, I got one. On the document in page 72, you have our committee there in all its glory, Governance and Audit Committee, and a couple of points there. On the 5th point, you mentioned about the what am I doing now? Sorry about that. Satisfying themselves about the process that's involved, the procedures and that. And you also mentioned it in the scrutiny committee, exactly the same wording. So you've got 2 committees looking at the same area. I find that a little worrying because you can sort of miss things, something can drop between because that committee is saying, oh, maybe that'll pick it up, or, you know.
I think what that highlights is a generalisation. So from the Audit and Governance Committee, you will be having the risk register brought to you in its totality on the 16th of March 22. But obviously the Scrutiny Committee will look at particular risks for individual service areas under that committee's responsibility, and we'll be looking at risks directly applying to service delivery. So I think what and I think is actually what Ross has used that wording in the report is risk management is the responsibility of us all.
Everybody, yes, I agree.
And I think I probably can't go in there enough of who's covering these, but you know, just to be clear for members here today, the risk management register will be brought to you on the 16th of March. So I suppose that will give you a bit more of context around the strategy and the impact on the actual register itself.
Okay, I'll look forward to that date. Thank you for that. Sue Richards.
No, it's me.
I can't find my hand, so I'd like to ask a question, please.
Oh, okay.
So you mentioned that each directorate will have their own risk management plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the March meeting, we've got the overall county risk management. Will we be having directorate management risk registers brought forward to the audit committee for assurance?
I would not normally, as far as I'm aware, Chair, but what would happen is that any key risks within those would feed into the corporate risk register. But I can certainly check that out with Ross and come back to you if there's any different to that advice. Or Steve me. Steve's got more history with this than me.
No, you did really well,
please.
Sue. I'll leave it to you. No, Sue is right. I mean, there is a directorate level risk register as well. But the way the process works is that the most significant risks find their way onto the corporate risk register, which is reviewed by the corporate management team routinely as part of the corporate performance assessment process. And it's those risks that are reported to the Governance and Audit Committee, and equally they go on to Cabinet as well after the Governance and Audit Committee. So that's the way the process currently works.
I see. So we wouldn't have any input into Directorate risks?
Not under the current framework. The scrutiny committees would see that level of detail, but it's the more significant risks that we present to yourselves. However, if there was a particular directorate where you wanted that information, there's no reason why you couldn't request it and call that in for your consideration moving forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you.
Can I just add as well, Chair, that
yes,
if I looked at education's perspective, the Directorate Performance Assessment for Education contains the education risks at the end, as they do with other directorates. So, you know, and that goes to the Education Scrutiny Committee and feeds into the Corporate Performance Assessment. But as Steve said, if there's areas that the committee wants to pull in, no problem at all.
Thank you very much. Brenda.
Councillor Adams has a question.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
That's okay. I was going to come in immediately after Nigel had.
I'm sorry, I jumped the queue.
No, that's it. Yeah, you did, but I did. I don't mind.
Thank you.
If we look at the point that Nigel actually made, 2.2.2, Governance and Audit Committee, us, it actually says that we should be satisfying themselves that robust processes and procedures exist and are applied for the management of operational risks. Now, that's a slightly different paragraph to the scrutiny committee which follows, because that one then says satisfies itself as a scrutiny committee that robust processes and procedures exist and are applied for the management of risks within the organization, which is the ones that they are looking at. So I'm sure I read it exactly as if it was a complete replication of the first one, but no, there are enough differences in there if we look at it to see, yes, there's a different responsibility applied from us as a committee and the appropriate scrutiny committee. Just wanted to point it out. It's a bit pedantic perhaps, but I think it is important in there, the way it's written.
Not at all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, John. Councillor Miles has a question.
Brenda.
Thanks. I was just interested to know, once you've agreed the strategy and published it, how do you actually intend to get people to read it and use it? How are you going to raise awareness of this strategy across the organisation?
Okay, can I come in and answer that, Chair? Yeah. Okay. We've got a framework to look at. Our first would be Leadership and Management Network. So we would, as Ros, as we've said in the strategy itself, we've got guidance that we're going to be updating, and we would look to relaunch that with our management network and leadership team, and that is in the form of a management network session. So it's very to and fro in, any questions, any feedback they've got, that would be undertaken to make sure everybody's aware of the changes, everybody's aware of the importance of it, and to make sure, to reiterate, they are already aware of the importance, but also, I suppose, more importantly, that, as I said previously, that risk management is a role for us all in the organisation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ridgewell.
John.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I wanted to just pick up on, I think it's 5.5 of the report, and the line that talks about strengthening our lateral risks assessments, or the lateral risk process, which I find particularly interesting. my esteemed colleague Alan, Councillor Mann, yesterday mentioned about describing our authority as someone that works in silos. I would stress it's not something I recognise one bit, but nevertheless that was a point that was made. But were there any worries on that account? Then quite clearly this one is aimed directly at addressing that, in that we're now re-emphasising or refocusing or focusing more on the lateral risk which may exist. And I thought that was a particularly interesting point. I just wonder whether there's anybody just want to comment on that at all.
I'll just come in. I don't know what conversations were last night, Councillor Ridgewell, but from my perspective, my involvement, you've got the Directorate performance assessments, okay? They feed into the corporate management team. So the performance team go to corporate management, the directors work together and look at all their risks. So, you know, this is very much the Directorate performance assessments and the corporate performance assessments, in our view, as supported, as Ros has said in 5.5 in the report, strengthening the lateral risks within the process, which is something that we've been trying to achieve, which we think the new performance framework does. Obviously, as with anything, it's open to review, to change and to improve as we progress, but it is making an impact. So thanks for that, Councillor Ridgewell.
Yeah. If I may just come back on that. Yeah. As I say, it's not a description that I recognise either as an elected member or in many years ago when I had the privilege of working for the authority. But I think it's a useful point, and the fact that you're talking there, Sue, about refining it and modifying it as time goes on is all to the good. So thanks.
Thank you very much, John.
No other questions on this, Chair?
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you very much, Nigel. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Steve. Now, I need someone to move and second this report, please.
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brenda. Could we have the voting, Rebecca, please? Thank you.
Can I register my verbal vote, Nigel Yates, please?
Thank you, Nigel.
Chair, that's unanimous.
Oh, thank you very much, Rebecca. Okay, now we're on to the Internal Audit Services Annual Audit Plan 21-22, update on progress. Deb Granu, the Acting Internal Audit Manager. It's a handful, isn't it? Hello, Deb.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. Okay, this report summarises the audit work done in the first half of 21-22 and is to help to inform the Committee of our progress and opinions, to support and inform the year-end opinion and ultimately give assurance for the AGS. There's detailed narrative in the report identifying other audit work we've done that's not included in the table and other factors that may have impacted on our progress. For example, there's been some issues with finalising some work regarding some audits because of that work was disrupted by COVID, for example. One other issue is our staffing. So I'd really like to highlight to the committee today that we've put in place a mini restructure. We're backfilling now those positions and we're making really good progress in appointing staff to that. So I think the resource capacity going forward now is going to be greatly enhanced. A full list of the work activities included as the appendix for your information. So I'd welcome any questions, really. Thank you.
Councillor Miles has got a question.
I'm sorry?
Councillor Miles has got a question.
Thank you, Brenda.
I looked at the long list of audits that had been completed, and it's a tremendous amount of work by the length of the list. I'm sure there's a lot of activities been going on. But I wanted to focus in on those items that started longest ago, just to find out. Some of them are quite old now, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And we did a set of audits, particularly I think the ones you probably highlighted on are the school's IT inventory audits. We started an exercise where we were going out to schools, and it's a themed audit. So we did 20 schools. Well, unfortunately, as that work was being undertaken and was really almost coming to an end, COVID, the pandemic hit, and obviously our work was suspended. I think also something that needs to be borne in mind as well, obviously there was then a great deal of upheaval with the IT equipment that schools were holding, with the introduction of blended learning, and also at that point as well, the ed tech project was coming into play, with actually issuing out a lot of IT equipment into schools as that was being deployed. So we've taken into account the recommendations that were raised in the individual audits, and also we're now working with the ed tech team. We made some recommendations in respect of the individual schools, some of which were considered to be in need of improvement. Obviously that needs to be borne in mind, because that does just relate to the individual school, and that may mean that their IT records weren't complete. It's not, that shouldn't be extrapolated any wider than that. But we've put recommendations in place as part of the EdTech project. They've now undertaken full IT audits, equipment audits, and we're working with them now, and we've got a second phase of this piece of work planned, hopefully in next year's audit plan, hopefully. So at very early stages, I had a discussion with Mr. Warren, Dr. Warren yesterday, and we'll be enhancing that. But I can assure you that improvements have been made in general in respect of this. So and obviously going back to your original point, the reason for the delay was that our work was interrupted by COVID, and then when the schools did go back, obviously they had other concerns. So we did, if you like, didn't put too much pressure on them to come back with us, and we worked at a corporate level then with education corporately to move a lot of these issues along.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm sure there's a couple on the list who are kind of not school related.
Yeah, okay.
There's corporate safeguarding.
That one was started in February. We were going to do that as a self-assessment using our MK system, and we've had a few teething troubles with that, if I'm going to be honest. So now I've got a new member of staff who's actually taken that on board, and we're now going to be completing that for the corporate services and education directly. We've sent out questionnaires, and we're working on a return date the 6th of February for that. So I very much hope that we'll have that directory done, so we can report back into the officer who's responsible for safeguarding and into the safeguarding board with the findings of that, and then we move on to another of the directorates then to do that, repeat that exercise with that directorate.
Okay, I won't pick up on any individual ones, because I suppose we could go through the whole list. Like, can we just say, oh, what about that one? What about that one?
Well,
yeah, you list that you sort of would want to draw our attention to. Let's put it like that. Any that are particularly tricky or out of the ordinary?
Well, no, they are what they are, to be honest. The list is there for you to ask. I mean, what we might think is routine might not be routine for you, or vice versa. I don't think it's mainly my place to lead you into questioning. But obviously, if you've got certain aspects or certain particular items on there that you want to ask me questions, you go ahead. But like I said, these are all now in our MK system. All the opinions are in there. Any recommendations, basically any that have got an effect in need of improvement, will have had at least one high risk finding and an associated recommendation put in place. So those findings now and recommendations will be in the recommendation tracking report, which I think I'm bringing to the next committee. So hopefully we'll be able to see those recommendations being raised. They do have individual recommendations, depending on what they are, will have a different end date on them. But hopefully we'll be able to, now we've had a full uninterrupted year, we should be able to see that data now developing on a more granular level. We're also going to be hopefully pulling out information on themes. And that, again, that'll help to identify any risk areas and provide further information in developing our plan on a more risk-based approach.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Deb. Anyone else, Nigel?
I think
apart from me.
No one else.
Okay. Deb, I have a question on staffing. You mentioned here that you've got extra staff, and that's good because your MK system isn't what it should be. But I have concerns about the IT staff, in particular, with the amount of work that they must be doing to keep us all safe and talking to each other. But it's not just that, it's the people that have moved to different directorates doing different things with COVID, coming back or moving on or leaving the authority. How can we be assured that the staffing levels throughout the county, not in audit, throughout the county, is not making the staff exhausted and they might end up either being sick or moving on? How do I get that report?
That's probably something that probably needs to be fed back to through Steve's section 151, and then we can feed something into the audit plan to scope out a piece of work to do that, to provide you with that assurance. Oh, I can see Steve's got his hand up.
Steve. Thank you, Deb. Steve.
Yeah, it's just to reassure you, you'll be aware all sectors of the economy, including the public sector, are facing significant challenges at the moment in terms of recruitment and retention of staff. Just to give you assurances that this is on the radar with the corporate management team and with Cabinet. And we are looking at different ways we can attract people into the organisation. So I just want to give you some assurance that is high on the radar in terms of discussions that are taking place, between the corporate management team and Cabinet at the present time.
Yeah, I realise that you must be looking for staff and all the rest of it, but how do we know, how can we know that the staff that are in place are not exhausted? Because that's where mistakes are made, that's where people become ill and end up off work. How do we know that they're not being pushed to the limits? Common sense tells me they are.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's all I can really say there, Chair, is that, again, well-being of staff is important to everyone in the organisation. We do provide support through things like customer, the care line, etc. We send out various leaflets on a weekly basis from the well-being team of what support is available. Yes. But also, every manager's got a responsibility, really, for the well-being of their staff. So discussions in one-to-one meetings, team meetings, etc. These matters will be raised where there's areas of concern. They will be dealt with. So those discussions do take place, as part of our day-to-day management and engagement with staff.
That's good. And if I assume then that any department or directorate that is at risk or is overwhelmed, underwhelmed, can't cope, that would get into their risk register.
Yeah, I mean, the recruitment of staff, for example, at the moment, some of the challenges we're facing, does present a risk to the organisation. But I just want to reassure you, this is on our minds all the time in everything that we're doing. And staff now for the last 2 years, they've all had to deal with the pandemic, many new challenges, just the way we work, everything. It's all up for discussion. We will be working now around the details of our flexible working or agile model moving forward. and we will look, to accommodate staff's wishes wherever we can with that as well. So
that would be good,
so
because lots of people can't work from home as well as they could
exactly. But
away
equally,
from home.
we have staff who actually like working from home.
Yes,
so we need to make sure we can
understand
accommodate that as well. So this flexible way of working now, I think you'll see quite a lot of progress on that over the next few months. Touch wood, as long as we don't see another variant of COVID coming along.
Yes.
But we're at that stage now with a further lifting of restrictions where we can start actually moving this along at a bit more pace. And obviously we will engage with members on what those new operating models will look like.
That's good. Thank you both ever so much.
Councillor Ridgewell.
Yeah, thanks. Just picking up on that theme, I'm sure that had Ed not had to leave us, he would have touched on the investment that's going in now to our apprenticeship scheme as well, which, in a way is a way of feeding in new blood into the authority. So, I'm greatly heartened by that. But I do take Margaret's point on the stress levels amongst our staff, and it's something that, we really, really have to keep an eye on. As we do with elected members, to be fair, everybody's under huge pressure at the moment with all that we do, and it's reassuring to hear people like Steve talking about what is actually done. But the fact there's more money being put in the budget to bring in new staff and apprentices, I think it is something that's going to help as well.
Can I just add a little bit of information
yes,
to you?
Yes, of course, Deb.
We've actually successfully appointed one of the apprenticeships to a permanent position within our team. He's making very good progress through his professional studies, and actually we've just appointed another member of staff who came from another department who originally entered the authority on the apprenticeship scheme. So I don't know whether anyone's doing any table topping measures to see who's, but for a very small team, we've actually used the apprenticeship team very well to actually backfill our staff. So I'd like to think that we're quite a good advert for the scheme and how it can be a success in the authority. So just bit of a good news message.
That sounds very good. Someone from an apprentice to work with you. It's excellent news. Excellent. Any more questions?
If I could just come back in on that, yes.
Oh, yes, John.
Yeah, I mean, I can also support that as well in terms of the apprenticeship scheme over the years, but particularly now with blue collar workers, and most of you know my experiences in green space management, and certainly apprentices have. We've had a number of apprentices have come on and gone and are now in quite senior positions within the organisation. So it's something that I think as an authority we could be proud of currently, and look forward to developing that even more in the future.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, just to add a little bit more to this, what's important as well here is that the apprenticeship investments we've made in recent years have been with one-off money, effectively, where we've been able to utilise underspends or reserves. What's important now is that the proposal in the budget report will mean that we'll have £250,000 on a recurring basis. So that will be in our base budget and available to us every year moving forward. So I think that shows a strong commitment to the apprenticeship programme as well.
Excellent news, that is. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, members.
Okay, now this report is to note, so we'd need to do no further. Now we're going to move on to agenda item 10, which is the Audit of Accounts Addendum Report. Now this is in two parts really, the bit that we can discuss in open forum and then the exempt bit. So we will be discussing pages 95 to 117 only, because before we go any further, we have questions to ask. So, is this you, Bethan? And
it's me,
Steve?
Chair.
And Mark?
It's Mark. Councillor.
Yeah, I'll talk briefly to the paper then and invite any questions. The addendum sets out our recommendations from the 2020-21 Accounts Audit, and it also provides an update on actions taken on the previous year's recommendations. So just to summarise those two areas, for 2021, the first part of the report, you find 11 11 areas raised with 11 recommendations. We're pleased that to note and pleased at the time that management have accepted all of those 11 recommendations, which are set out in the report, and management have added their substantive responses with implementation dates. So 11 recommendations in there. Last year, so the second half of the report for 2019-20, there were 22 findings and recommendations by Grant Thornton at the time. 20 were accepted by management, so there were 20 being picked up by management, and we provide an update on the progress made. And pleased to report that of the 20 accepted, 15 we confirmed as having been actioned and implemented. Three were progressing, and then there were two remaining that haven't progressed as intended. So overall, generally very good progression with those recommendations. And in terms of the first report, that's it really, Chair, as a summary. I wasn't gonna go through each item, particularly the 11 from 2021 in any detail, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. Nigel, are there any questions?
Yes, Councillor Miles, I think, has got a question on the first findings, Exhibit 1, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Brenda?
Yeah, this was the related party declarations. And when I read this, I wasn't sure how seriously we should be concerned about this one. So I wondered if you could explain a bit more. I mean, on the one hand, I think for someone to fail to disclose something is maybe just an oversight that happens from time to time. But on the other scale, I wonder if we really ought to be quite concerned about people not disclosing their interests. So can you kind of put it into perspective for me so I can understand better how worried we should really be about this aspect of it?
Yes, I mean, just as some context and perspective, with regard to the annual accounts, there's an accounting standard on related parties, whether I'm auditing Caerphilly Council or Tesco PLC. There's an accounting standard on related parties. And what we set across all of our audits for related parties, related party transactions and balances, is a far lower materiality, which we quote in the report here of £5,000. The materiality for most of the account, well, the vast majority of the account is about £4.5 million pounds for the vast majority of the accounts. So it gets a lot of audit attention because we judge it to be the information is of public interest and therefore has a far lower level of materiality. We spend as much time auditing what's not in those accounts as what is in those accounts. Auditing what's in the accounts is more straightforward than auditing what's not in the accounts. And again, under the auditing standards, the international auditing standards, one of the things we have to check for is completeness. Are those accounts complete? So related parties every year will be highly relevant to the audit opinion we place on the accounts, and are they materially true and fair? And materially true and fair to the tune of £5,000. So it'll be a key area every year. And when I mentioned the recommendations from last year, where 20 were accepted, and I said 2 of them really haven't progressed, one of the 2 was on related parties. So this was reported by Grant Thornton last year as well. So it's one of those areas that gets a lot of attention. We do make a point in here, giving some perspective again. For example, we quote 10 councillors. And officers made a reasonable point that some of those 10, 7, as we say in the report, related to positions that they held on behalf of the council. And that's why we've made that point in the report. 10 councillors, albeit 7 of them relate to positions relating to the council. They're representing the council. And we can see that they're probably of less interest because you're representing the council rather than maybe being a director on a large company. or a small company. We kept it in the report, however, because for members, the best advice I can give is always disclose. If in doubt, disclose. Never, if in doubt, don't disclose. Because the best thing you can do is, if you're in doubt, you simply disclose. What have you got to lose? And therefore, we kept those 7 in this report to just make that point. Even where you're representing the council in a particular role or position, it's sensible to disclose it, and then the accountants can consider it. So the finance team within the council, and I say the accountants, the finance team within the council. So you asked for some perspective and context. I don't know whether that's helped, but that's trying to give you some perspective and context around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Brenda, before you answer, Steve would like to come in.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Mark has said, really. I looked at this myself, obviously, as part of the audit, and I was reassured. I don't think there was any deliberate non-disclosure. I think probably more of a lack of understanding in terms of what did need to be disclosed. And as Mark said, 7 of these non-disclosures did relate to people being on things such as the Cardiff Capital Region Scrutiny Committee, etc., where they're actually representing the council. So I think it's a case, really, of when we send the guidance out for the 2021-22 financial year, we'll make that more clear so members understand that it's probably better, as Mark said, if they do disclose those relationships. And I agree with Mark as well. If you're in any doubt, disclose it. If it's not relevant, it doesn't matter. But, at least by putting that in on your disclosure form, it is brought to our attention and we can decide whether that has any impact on the financial statements.
Is that okay, Brenda?
Yeah, does it happen to other councils as well? Is it commonplace or unusual?
I audit. I audit other local government bodies in the past and currently. I audit health boards. It comes up. We get a lot of audit attention, so it does come up. There are publicly available audit reports on health boards. You could go on the website after this meeting and look at a couple, and you'd see related parties featuring on reports on health boards. So it's a matter of public record. So it does come up. It gets a lot of audit attention, and therefore you could say it's more likely to come up. I don't think it's that difficult to get right, though, because if all members and all senior officers are making the disclosures, it's not difficult to get right. What I will say is we do use Companies House records. We do because we're interested in completeness. We go to Companies House records, which also, and that covers the Charity Commission as well, because the Charity Commission uses Companies House. And we've got a data tool that throws things out at us. So we have quite a few leads to follow through the Companies House data. The one downside in using Companies House data is you're actually required under the accounting standard per Steve's annual return to disclose for not just you, but your close family and dependents. So it's not just about you. In accounting terms, it's about you, close family and dependents and cohabitants. Well, when we're searching on councillors and senior officers, that is picking up intelligence in terms of the individual, but not their close family or dependents and things like that. So it's just another tool. It's not a perfect tool. It just focuses on the councillor or the senior officer. But it does come up for other bodies, not just LG, but health as well and central government. Across the board.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Steve. Are there any other questioners, Nigel?
There's Steve Harris has got his hand up.
Oh, Steve, do you want to come back? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, no problem. I just wanted to make some general comments on the report, really, just very briefly. Mark has already said that officers have responded positively to the audit, Wales recommendations, and work is already underway in a number of areas to address the issues that have been raised. Also wanted to inform you that we will provide an update on progress as part of the wider reporting we do on progress against regulated proposals for improvement. So you'll see that in due course. And also when Audit Wales present their audit of accounts reports for 21-22, as Mark has done for this year, he will also give you an update on the progress on the recommendations from the previous audit. To be fair, a number of the recommendations in here we actually welcome, because there's an opportunity now to work with Audit Wales to streamline the audit process, improve the quality of the accounts. I think in year one, when you're working with a new auditor, there's likely that more issues may be raised, because we've got to get used to the new ways of working with each other. And of course, the pandemic has presented challenges as well with working from home, etc. It's much easier, and I'm sure Mark would agree with me, to sit down face to face on many issues and exchange information as part of an audit than to do it virtually. But I think the main thing is we have responded positively. We will address the recommendations, and we will keep you updated on progress.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you.
I'm the only one left now with a question.
Okay, lovely.
Your
turn, Nigel.
Yeah, it's good to hear that you use Companies House, which the government didn't do, and they issued 1,000 companies that were operating with the COVID funds. I got a small question. In one of the findings, you noticed that the remuneration ratio wasn't quite correct. That they were using, or they weren't using, the education department. This data is obviously used for other things. You know, it's an insight into what's going on. I'm wondering, do you pick up on things like this where an idea comes up that is useful, that you could incorporate into your figures going forward? I mean, this was done for some reason. Obviously, I don't know what it was for, but it was obviously there's a difference of opinion here that it could be used for something on this area but not on that area, and therefore that's why it was done, obviously. But you have the regulations now which say that you must incorporate it, but it's going to skew the figures in a way that possibly you can't use the data in such a way that might be useful. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so, but just to take it back to basics on why we were looking at it. It's an accounting requirement for local government accounts, for central government and health as well. So it's across the piece. But the local government accounting requirements are set by CIPFA, Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Administration. So we don't set what's required. That's set by CIPFA for the across the UK. And this is a requirement where public bodies are required to disclose the ratio of the highest paid person to the middle paid person, not the average salary, but the median being the middle paid person. So if you had 200 staff, it'd be the 100th or the 101th, highest. It'd be that middle person and what's their salary. And it's an accounting requirement, and therefore we're required to audit that disclosure. And as is reported, and you've mentioned, the calculation had excluded school employees, so the median was the wrong point. The median salary was the wrong median salary was being picked up, and then of course the wrong ratio, is being calculated. So, I mean, you'll have staffing information from many areas, from many kind of angles and many areas for various needs, HR reporting, everything. But this is very much an accounting requirement that this relates to.
Yeah, I knew it was just one of those things that happened, but I was just wondering if it was used in a way that gives more information the way it was done, rather than what they had to do for the regulations. And obviously you can't move that. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, this kind of thing can come up on various audits. It's not unique to Caerphilly. The median point and the ratio does come up, but certain other bodies, isn't it? It's not unique.
If you're doing comparisons, you all have to be on the same sort of wavelength, isn't it? You can't. Yeah, that's where they get distortions then. Yeah. Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, just another point on this one. If you wanted to see more information on this, we do actually take a pay policy statement through to council every year. So there's a lot more detail in there, Nigel. If you were interested, I can send you a link to that report.
Thanks, Steve. No, I didn't want to see more information. I was just curious to to why that's happened in this one. That's all. Yeah, I can understand that.
Thank you ever so much. Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Now, we've come to the bit on the report where, if it suits you all, I'd like to go to the information items. By doing this, then nothing's been called in, but we can actually then ask people that shouldn't be in the meeting to leave before we discuss the PIT report. Is everyone happy with that? Yeah. Agenda items 11 to 14, which are for information only, haven't been called in. So we'll go on to the PIT report, which I can't remember now. Do I need to read this? Or do I just have to ask if everyone's happy with it?
I think, Chair, as long as you take a vote and everybody's happy, then obviously we can go into exempt session.
Okay. Can we use the hands up signal on the doings, please?
Sorry, Chair. We've got forms vote set up for that one. So could you take a mover and seconder, please?
Oh, my apologies, Beck.
Sorry, Chair.
Can I have a mover, please?
Yeah, move the PIT.
Can I second?
Oh,
Nigel Yates the second.
A few.
Thank you. There we go.
Can I register my vote on this particular item, please? Nigel Yates.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous. The PIT is carried.
Oh, thank you very much, Beck. Sorry I got that wrong. I've done very well considering. No, I mustn't laugh because I'll cough. Okay, the PIT report. Is everybody happy with that, please? Can you use the hands up function?
And we just voted for it.
Yeah, that's just been voted through, Chair. So I think the procedure now is that if
is that? Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Oh,
if
dear,
Rebecca
I'm so sorry.
can stop the recording and confirm that's been done, and then we can move on
Get
to
it
the
right
consent
one
item.
day, wouldn't I? I'm back on it, mind.